Hi, my name is Rabbi Dunner. Welcome to my Erev Shabbos Torah this week for Parshat Eikev. Thank you to our sponsor, Dr. Susan Grayson, for sponsoring this Erev Shabbos Torah in memory of her late husband, William Grayson, Baal ben Moshe, Zichron Levracha, whose yahrzeit is on the 25th of Av. May his neshama have an aliyah, and may we all be zoche to see Tchias HaMesim. In Parshat Va'eschanan and Parshat Eikev, the Torah tells us that we need to put up a MEZUZAH on the side post of the entrances into our homes. Uchsavtom oisam al mezuzahs beisecha uvisharecha. You shall write them on the doorposts of your homes and your gates. A MEZUZAH is a piece of parchment containing the psukim from Va'eschanan and Eikev, which is then rolled up into a scroll and affixed to the doorpost. The MEZUZAH stands like a sentry at every door. We pass it whenever we enter or leave a room. Some people kiss the MEZUZAH, first touching it with their hand and then bringing their hand to their mouth and kissing it. But there is no obligation to kiss the MEZUZAH. It's a custom introduced by the Arizal a few hundred years ago. But even if we don't kiss the MEZUZAH, we should definitely notice it when we walk in and out of a room. We should look at it. We should be conscious of it. Although, what exactly should we be thinking about when we look at the MEZUZAH? What exactly should we be thinking about when we see the letter Shin on the case and are reminded of the scroll inside the case? The Rambam, Maimonides, at the end of his presentation of the laws of MEZUZAH, tells us that we need to think about the eternal nature of God. If we think about that, it will inspire us to wake up from our sleepy selves and realize that nothing in this world is permanent other than Hashem and His Torah. Okay, sounds wonderful, right? But how and why does the MEZUZAH, of all things, remind us of these concepts? Rabbi Yissocher Frand, who was my rebbe in Ner Yisroel yeshiva in Baltimore in the 1980s, has a wonderful answer. I love it, and you'll love it too. He says that the MEZUZAH reminds us of these concepts because the MEZUZAH is the ultimate silent witness to the ebb and flow of history and human events. Think about a MEZUZAH on the door of an old shul, for example. It has been on that doorpost for decades, maybe even for centuries. It has seen baby boys brought into the shul for bris milah. It has seen young boys and girls run past it, going in and out of the shul as they get older. Then those children grow up and get married and have children of their own. Those boys and girls are now adults, still walking past that very same MEZUZAH, but they're getting older. Now they have grandchildren, all of them still going through that same door, past that very same MEZUZAH, in, out, in, out. Then they're old, and then they die. And maybe the hesped is in the shul. People come to hear the hesped, the eulogy, walking past that same MEZUZAH that the deceased person walked past thousands of times. Generations come and then they're gone. Governments rise and fall. The economy booms and then there's a recession. There's a war and then there's peace. The MEZUZAH sees everything. Just over the last century alone, our hypothetical MEZUZAH has seen the rise of the Soviet Union and communism, and then they collapsed. It saw the creation of the Third Reich, the so-called 1,000-year Reich, and then its ultimate defeat and destruction. The MEZUZAH has seen the birth of the State of Israel, like a phoenix coming out of the ashes, and its growth in leaps and bounds, until it became the preeminent center of Jewish life. When railroads were introduced in the 19th century, people thought that this new technology was so perfect that it would never change, it would never be surpassed. So much so that the railroad companies sold corporate bonds for centuries in advance. And where are they all today? On the scrap heap, along with their obsolete trains. Human beings always seek immortality. You've heard it before. This invention, this idea, this building, this book, this one is the one that will capture that elusive immortality. This is the one that will stand the test of time. This is the one for the ages. This is the one that will make me immortal. But guess what? None of them ever do. The Torah tells us in Bamidbar, at the end of Parshas Matos, about someone called Noach. And Noach went and captured Knos and its suburbs, and he named it, the Hebrew word here is La, Noach, in his name. Now, according to the rules of Hebrew grammar, the word La in that sentence should end with a mapik hey, that is, a hey with a dot inside it, as a mark of emphasis. But the tradition of how this sentence should be written is that it doesn't have a dot in the hey. Instead, the word La ends with a weak hey, no dot. The Medrash has something very interesting to say about that. The weak hey is there to let us know that the city called Noach didn't last. Eventually, it disappeared completely. Why does the Torah think that it's so important to let us know this information? Very simple. It is meant to teach us about the futility of imagining we can be immortal. Noach wanted to immortalize himself by creating something permanent, an entire city, no less, and crowning it with his own name. But he failed. The city was destroyed. And if it wouldn't be for the fact that his name is mentioned in the Torah to teach us this exact lesson, how ironic, Noach would be completely forgotten. And that is the message of the MEZUZAH. Everything constantly changes. Nothing is permanent. Nothing stays the same. We like to pretend that it does, but it doesn't. The MEZUZAH is a witness to that. Only Hashem and his Torah are permanent. And on that note, let me wish you Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for watching. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.